About the Kursk operation exactly a month ago was it is a success, he said. What we were trying to do was to deny Russia the opportunity to use Kursk and that region to launch offensive actions into Ukraine, for instance, against the city of Kharkiv, which Russia has done periodically, in fact, keeps trying to take Kharkiv and keeps getting pushed back. So he says they have established a security zone in Kursk. They've also taken Russian prisoners of war, which they want to trade for their own prisoners. He also admitted that it's pushing some pressure on places like Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, and he did acknowledge that there were some morale problems, but he said they're working very hard to train up more conscripts and to give those at the front, adequate rotation so they can get back their strength and see their family and go back to the front refreshed. Here's what he said. How can somebody like you boost morale and make people still want to fight? Because that we hear that moment of patriotic fervor that was so obvious at the beginning of the invasion seems to be cooling down.
You're right on this point. The issue of morale is a very important area of our work. Of course, talking about the Kursk operation, we should note this is what has significantly improved the morale of not only the military, but the entire Ukrainian population. It was and still is an incentive that has boosted the morale of our servicemen, their thirst for victory.
He also confirmed that the long delay in the delivery of U.S. weapons and ammunition really cost lives of what he called our good people on the front line. He's pleased that this stuff is now coming in, but he says we need more. We need, of course, anti-air defense systems to stop the Russian cruise and ballistic missiles. And he said we need the restrictions on how we use all this weaponry to be lifted. And in English, he then said, that we will win and together we are stronger, referring to the US and their allies.
There's growing outrage in Kenya over the latest horrific act of gender-based violence against a top female athlete. Rebecca Cheptegei, a 33-year-old Ugandan runner, died days after her former boyfriend is accused of dousing her in petrol and setting her on fire. Ms. Cheptegei had recently returned home after making her Olympic debut in Paris. United Nations data estimates 22,000 women were victims of violence across Africa in 2022. The BBC's Anne Soy reports.
This case has brought to the fore a very important discussion about domestic violence and the toll it is taking on communities. This is the third elite female athlete to fall victim to domestic violence in just 3 years in Kenya. And therefore, there's a lot of outrage, a lot of anger, and a disturbing sense of deja vu. And people are asking what more can be done to end it. I've spoken to lawyers who have been involved in cases of domestic violence, dealing with victims, and they say that the laws exist to protect them and to deliver justice. However, the implementation is where the problem is.
Anticipation is growing for thousands in Papua New Guinea who are preparing to roll out the red carpet for the Pope's arrival this evening, the latest stop on his 11-day Asia-Pacific tour. Our correspondent Alicia Foon has more.
Children will line the streets to welcome the first visit from a Pope to PNG in almost 30 years. Performers and musicians have been rehearsing for weeks ahead of Sunday's Mass, which is expected to draw crowds of over 35,000 people. Official numbers show around 6,000 people have already travelled to Port Moresby. Bougainvillean Priscilla Takusi says she's looking forward to the visit.
We are all blessed that the Holy Father is coming to Papua New Guinea. It is the first of its kind. After a very long time, we might not have this kind of event in the next 10 years or so. So at this time, I could say that we are all blessed.
The Church hopes the visit will uplift and bring hope to the nation, which has been through a lot in recent years, from natural disasters to political unrest, violence and economic hardships.
Southern Chinese provinces and cities are bracing for the arrival of super typhoon Yagi, shutting schools ahead of its expected landfall. Authorities have raised the typhoon alert to the highest level before Yagi is forecast to hit later today. Flights and trains are also being suspended across Hainan, Hong Kong and Macau in preparation. The typhoon has more than doubled its strength since devastating the Philippines earlier this week, where at least 13 people were killed. Maximum sustained winds of up to 209 kilometres per hour are reported at its eye. Yagi is so far registering as the world's second most powerful tropical cyclone of the year, after Atlantic Hurricane Beryl a few months ago. Scientists say typhoons are becoming stronger, fuelled by warmer oceans spurred by climate change. A group of researchers led by the University of Texas, Austin, say they have discovered an antibody that can neutralise all known variants of the virus that causes COVID-19. It could be a major breakthrough in fighting the virus. Our correspondent Tony Waterman has more.
The researchers say they discovered and isolated a neutralizing antibody called SC27 from the blood of a single patient. That antibody attaches to the virus and prevents it from infecting cells in the body. The team was then able to use existing technology to obtain the exact molecular sequence of the antibody, opening the possibility of mass manufacturing for future treatments. One option would be to incorporate the antibody into a universal vaccine.
And just finally, a company says it secured a contract in Mozambique to plant 200 million trees and restore the country's mangroves. Blue Forest says the project to bring back trees destroyed by logging and cyclones will start in November. Mangroves are one of the world's most efficient plants at capturing carbon dioxide. Their roots also help reduce erosion and provide shelter for fish and other creatures. And that's all for Te Pūrongo o Te Ao World Watch Today, Charlotte.
Tēnā koe, thank you very much, Neva. And that brings us to the end of Te Pūrongo Te Paitūtanga for Friday, September the 6th. I'll be back on Rahina Monday with interviews in the latest from Aotearoa and the world. Have a lovely weekend. Kia pai tōra.
RNZ News at 1, good afternoon. I'm Marama Tipole. The stranded barge Manaho has been successfully refloated at Carter's Beach near Westport. A Westland Mineral Sands spokesperson says the specialist operation started at low tide around 6:30 this morning and the barge was refloated just after midday. Salvors and excavators to retrieve the Manaho's anchors from the vessel and discharge all ballast to prepare for the recovery. It was towed offshore by a tug with assistance from a helicopter. The spokesperson says the vessel is stable, the hull intact and there are no leaks. It will now be towed to Nelson. The police say Dargaville woman Joanna Mai Sione Lawaki deserved to get home alive. The 38-year-old's body was discovered on Ripiro Beach on the west coast north of Dargaville on August the 2nd. The police announced today that post-mortem results show she was the victim of foul play. Detective Inspector Al Simons told Midday Report she had a number of injuries.
Jo's a mother who deserves to return to her family, and our job now is to find out what happened to her and hold those who are responsible to account.
Mr Simons says officers are speaking to a number of people and are tracing 2 vehicles. He says they're also looking for some of her clothes, including a white T-shirt with a big red Nike tick on the front and dark tracksuit pants. The Police Association wants more to be done to avoid officers needing to use force on people in custody. The police have put out their annual Tactical Options report, which provides an overview of what officers are facing and the tactics being used. 8% of cases where force was used happened when someone was in custody. 1 officer was injured for every 10 such events. The association's president, Chris Cahill, says something needs to change.
I think police have to look at how the staffing is handled in the training, but also the environment. Are they actually safe environments to keep prisoners in and to actually look after them in a situation that keeps both the prisoner and the officer safe?
Overall, the report found the use of force is still low, involved in just 0.3% of all jobs police attend. A debate over the future of the Far North's Māori ward is continuing, with speaker after speaker calling for the seats to be retained. Councillor Samati Rakina has moved an amendment to the original motion, inserting extra words that describe the binding poll required by the government as forced and discriminatory. He's also called for Council's chief executive to explore the legal repercussions of refusing to hold the poll. Up to 200 people are taking part in the meeting. Britain is to send 650 air defence missiles to Ukraine. The short-range missiles are to help protect the country from Russian drones and bombing. Ukraine has made repeated requests for more air defence support. The missiles can fire up to 6 kilometres. Papua New Guinea is preparing for the Pope's arrival this evening. Pope Francis is on an 11-day visit to Asia and the Pacific. RNZ's Pacific correspondent in PNG, Scott Wydere, says over 30,000 people have already registered for Sunday Mass and even more are expected to turn up on the day. He says the papal visit is timely as the country has been through a lot in recent years, from natural disasters to political unrest, violence and economic hardships.
So the message basically is a message of hope for Papua New Guineans and to the government that people shouldn't give up hope. They should keep working at the things that matter to them and particularly the challenges that this country faces.
After PNG, the Pope will travel to East Timor and Singapore. And a coalition of media organisations has petitioned a court in the US state of Nevada to open up the secret proceedings of a legal battle which could determine the future of the Murdoch media empire. The ABC's Carrington Clark reports.
Leading media companies, including the New York Times, the Washington Post and Reuters, have filed a motion objecting to the case being so extensively sealed. In July, the New York Times published a report that the Murdoch family is locked in a secret court battle over the control of the family business. The report says Rupert Murdoch wants to amend a family trust that would give equal voting shares to his 4 eldest children. Instead, he wants eldest son Lachlan to take control once he passes. The 3 other children object. The trial is due to begin this month.
And that's the news.
Every time you hear these horns,
the price is dictating to them that the only option they have is to turn their power off.
It's the panel.
Just like Oasis themselves, I didn't like Blair's snooty accents and sort of superior demeanour.
Wow.
The experts, the opinions, the panel. With Wallace Chapman, weeknights at 6, RNZ National.
RNZ National, funded through New Zealand On Air. Jesse Mulligan is next. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Saturday. Strong wind warnings are in force from Wairarapa to Canterbury High Country tomorrow. Northland to Taranaki, also Coromandel and the Central High Country. Cloudy periods, isolated showers turning to rain from Waikato to Taranaki late tomorrow. Bay of Plenty, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, mainly fine but isolated showers developing in Bay of Plenty tomorrow. Whanganui to Wellington, also Wairarapa, cloud increasing with isolated showers from tonight, then a period of rain tomorrow evening. Bulla, Westland and Fiordland, a few showers north of the glaciers today. Rain with some heavy falls elsewhere spreading north tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Detective Inspector Glenn Baldwin from the Auckland Police. Thank you for coming today. I'm here to provide you with an update regarding Operation Coma, the homicide investigation police have launched following events yesterday evening in Grey Lynn. Our investigation is progressing and we are building a picture of what led to the violent events that played out in Tuarangi Rd last night. Numerous 111 calls were made at about 6:45 p.m. last night, reporting a firearm had been discharged in that area. On the arrival of police, we located a man with critical injuries, and despite efforts of people at the scene, he succumbed to his injuries. Through the course of the night, 2 further people presented at Auckland Hospital with gunshot wounds. One of those remains in a serious condition and the other is in a serious but stable condition. A third man was brought here to the Auckland Central Police Station to be spoken with as part of the investigation. While speaking with him, it was discovered that he too had been shot and medical assistance was sought for him. He was transported to the hospital. It is understood that all 3 men will undergo surgery today. At this point, we are not aware of anybody else who has been injured. What we know at this point is that an altercation was taking place between 2 groups that led to a firearm being produced and discharged. Immediately after the shots were discharged, those who were present fled the area. Both groups appear to be known to each other, and we believe this relates to an ongoing neighbourhood dispute between the groups. This dispute escalated last night, and someone has tragically lost their life in a shocking display of violence. As part of this homicide investigation, police are making further inquiries into a report of willful damage to a house on Tuarangi Rd earlier in the afternoon. We'll be looking at this information as well as other previously reported matters in that area. This will form part of our wider investigation and putting together the sequence of events that have ensued. Our investigation is still in its early stages and there is much to cover. Our staff are working hard to progress the investigation and there is an increased presence in the Lynn Tuarangi Rd area. Moving forward, a scene examination will remain ongoing through the course of the weekend. Investigation staff will also be going door to door conducting an area canvass. We also expect the victim to be removed from the scene today with a post-mortem examination scheduled for tomorrow. I know there will be some discussion within the community around who this man is, but at this point I'm unable to release any further information regarding that. His family are aware and we need to give them some time to notify other whānau and friends. We also need to complete formal identification procedures and, as I mentioned, a post-mortem examination will be carried out tomorrow. Lastly, I'd like to address the wider community. There will undoubtedly be some anxiety and concern out there that something like this has happened. Please do perceive this to be part of a dispute between 2 groups that commenced earlier that day. The previous incidents reported to police and potentially some that are not known to police as yet will form part of our wider investigation. This is a time for calm. This appalling violence will not be tolerated. There is a team of driven investigators who are working hard to identify those who were present and hold those to account who are responsible for the death. We know the public can also assist with our investigation, as this is a very busy part of town. We need to hear from people who can assist, who may have dashcam footage or CCTV. We urgently seek that to assist us with this investigation. Please contact police on 105, quoting file number 240905/8180 or Operation COMMA. Information can also be provided anonymously through Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. I'll take some questions.
You say this was an ongoing neighbourhood dispute between 2 groups. Are there gang links here?
There's no evidence of that as yet. Some of the people involved in this series of events are known to police. There are criminals involved. We are still seeking to identify those involved. It's too early to say.
How many people are you looking for at this stage?
Again, too early to say. We are still trying to establish a clear picture on that. And as our investigation develops, I think we will understand that better.
Are you looking at charging some of those who are currently in hospital?
Too early to say. The criminal liability assessments will be conducted in due course once we understand the full picture and circumstances of what has occurred.
Have police located the murder weapon?
Not yet.
So these people in hospital are on either side of the dispute. They're not necessarily all from one side of it.
Yeah, we haven't been able to speak with them. It's not clear. It may be that they are one side of the dispute. Again, remain open-minded on that. We are still trying to unpack that. People fled the scene. It is really hard to work out what has happened. We will endeavour to do that.
You said it was a neighbourly dispute. Was that 2 households?
Yes, and some associates of some of those residents, if you like.
What's the nature of the dispute?
As we understand at the moment, it's property damage. We are still trying to work out exactly the background to that. It started with property damage and it has now escalated to this. And this sort of stuff just needs to stop immediately.
What sort of property damage, yeah?
Broken windows on vehicles and houses.
Are the people involved all thought to be adults?
Yes, again, open-minded on that. We don't know who they are as yet.
You talk about some of the anxiety in the community. Obviously, this is the 3rd homicide investigation that police have launched in the last week, following the events of last weekend. I mean, can you assure the public that these aren't linked whatsoever? And can you speak to, I mean, is Auckland safe?
Look, first of all, it's actually the 4th homicide in the last 10 days. None of these incidents appear to be linked. They're all separate. It is a tragedy. The timing is incredibly unfortunate, but look, we are investigating all of those matters with diligence. Those other 3 matters, the offenders have been arrested, and those matters are now before the courts. This matter has our absolute focus at this time. We will work hard over the next few days to understand the circumstances. We are following positive lines of inquiry, and as I say, we are focused on holding this offender to account.
How many, apologies if you cut this off, but how many people are you still seeking?
There's quite a few, probably over a dozen. We don't yet understand the full numbers. It's a fairly chaotic series of events. When police arrive, people have fled the area. The CCTV that we hope to get from the community and from traffic cameras and the like will hopefully help us to understand that. It does take a wee bit of time to unpack that, particularly when the circumstances are so rapidly changing. It's dark and there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts.
So you're potentially looking at, this is multiple people involved, could be multiple charges of varying levels in the wash-up?
Oh, there could be. Too early to say. We are primarily focused on holding the killer to account, and then the subsidiary offending around that we will review as well.
So this is an ongoing dispute. I mean, are you expecting there could be further retaliation?
Oh, I would like to think not, but there will be an increased police presence. We'll increase our patrols in that area. Obviously, if people see suspicious activity occurring, call 111 and let us know. The community need to be our eyes and ears. So if there are concerns about the behaviour of people congregating and there's a likelihood of violence, we need to know about it. Please call 111 and tell us.
Was the killing, for want of a better word itself, was that confined to a property or was this in the street?
It has started at the front of a property and the deceased has died on the roadside.
How many people were there when police turned up? Approximately.
Those immediately involved had fled. Residents had come out of their properties, obviously hearing the commotion and the shots, and numerous people, residents, locals, were spoken to last night.
How far do the reports of issues in that area with the neighbourly disputes go back?
Look, the first possible linked incident could be back as far as March. We need to unpack that some more. There's certainly an incident on the 16th of August, but a man has been charged with burglary in relation to that matter. Mm-hmm. And the incidents yesterday, we're still looking to understand that further. I do perceive that the incident reported to us at about 4 o'clock is related to what subsequently unfolded. I believe those matters are linked, and again, that will form part of our wider investigation.
And obviously there's still people who have fled the scene that haven't spoken to police yet. Have you spoken to people who are still part of the inquiries who you're asking to keep in the area?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Look, the people that fled, yes, we want to hear from you. Other residents in the area that might know something or recognise people, we want to hear from you. We will be going door to door, but if you have information that can help us, please contact us. Don't wait for us to come to you. It might be the key piece of the jigsaw puzzle that helps us unpack all of this and get a clearer understanding of what's going on.
There's quite a clear, down at the scene, quite a clear concentration of police at, I think, 68 Tuarangi Rd. Is that the property where it's believed to have started and it's then spilled down to where the scene is?
Look, people at the property at number 68 have been spoken to by police. We are working with them to understand around earlier incidents. Exactly the circumstances of how that's unpacked, it's a bit early for me to say. We hope to get a clearer understanding of that. But some of those people we've spoken to last night.
How many weapons were involved, and do you know roughly if there were more than one firearm?
I'm aware of one firearm, but there was a number of shots. Whether or not there were more, I'm not sure. Again, too early to say.
Any concerns that there may be more people who have been injured?
Oh, look, we only know about the ones we know about. Some people are unwilling to talk to police for their own reasons. Look, if there were other people injured, we would like to hear from them, but we're not aware of any others at the moment.
You said there were a lot of people involved, looking for at least a dozen. I mean, was this a planned gathering as far as you're concerned?
Oh, look, it's too early to say. Certainly some groups have arrived. There was some people already in Tuarangi Rd, so they are there. And unfortunately, that's part of what we're trying to work out is how that came to be and how those two groups came into conflict on the roadside in Tuarangi Rd.
We've seen Kainga Order staff at the scene this morning. Is there any link in that respect? Are the properties Kainga Order properties at all?
Oh, it's too early for me to say. I don't know that, I'm sorry.
And the man who sadly died, where he was, unfortunately, where he died, was that where he lived?
No. He did live in the area, but not there.
And the other three that were injured, did they live in that same address?
Too early for me to say. They were located, again, in the street, and for privacy reasons, I'm not going to go into where they lived. Okay, thank you.
The initial girls first found her back